Well, here we are, Hannah, for the final episode of this series. It's been so lovely talking to you, and it's great to see you today. We have touched a few times over the series on the fact that it's easy to burn out in kids ministry, and that the average term is just 3 years, which is like no time at all. But you have been doing this your whole adult life. So today I want to find out your secret. But, but first, I'd love to know, have you ever felt like quitting?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like I worked at the church that I was working in for 10 years, the first one that I worked in. And back in 2019, I was made redundant from this role. And at that point, I was like, right, that's it. I'm done with children's ministry. I'm not doing children's ministry again. You know, I felt like this was the point where I was just going to do youth ministry and stick to that. Because before, for that 10 years, I was doing youth and children's. But I just wanted to do youth. And then I went out to another place and did youth ministry there. But I had the heart for pioneering, the heart to equip the church, the heart to be like, right, okay, I want to help churches to do youth ministry, which is pretty much what I do now, but with kids. But in my head right there, it was youth ministry all the way. And then I was approached by the minister who I work for now. And he said, we would love you to do our children's ministry. At that point, I was still in my head, like, I'm not doing children's ministry again. So no, I don't want to do this job. But actually, within a year, I was going back to him saying, God's called me back into children's ministry. I'm coming back in. And so, yeah, it's interesting how that season has been. But I knew that God was calling me back in to do children's ministry. So he started bringing me back. But even throughout those 10 years of working in that first church, there were many times where I definitely felt like quitting. I think there were times where there was lots of challenges, times where I lost energy, enthusiasm, passion, vision, you know, all of those moments where you're just like, ugh, I've done this for so long. I can't do it anymore, you know? And it's really important that then you know why you are doing what you are doing. So I think we mentioned it probably in one of these podcasts before, is knowing your why is so important because it motivates you and keeps you going. And so you need to know, what is your vision? Like, what do you want to see happen? And make sure that it's a God-given vision, because if it's just from your own mind, then it can just, you know, disappear. But I can guarantee that if it's from God, it will always bring you back to where you're supposed to be.
How do you
And
tell the difference?
how do I
That's
tell
a
the difference?
struggly thing, isn't it?
What, between if it's God and if it's
Yeah, how
not?
do I know this is God? How do I know this is just me? I don't know.
I think for me, it was definitely a case of, if it was God, then there would be something else to definitely confirm it. You know, if it was, and I would feel it within my whole spirit. Like, I would feel it within my whole body of just knowing, yeah, this is right. Definitely feeling peace about things, and just know that as you're stepping into it, you just know, and you just feel that complete peace. For me, if I know that it's not of God, I definitely don't feel peace. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like real like sickness, and just, I'm like, this is not right going forward. So having that complete peace, then you know that it's from God, and you know that God is calling you back into that place. And so there's always been confirmations, there's always been different things that have brought me back. But also, when you're in that space of worship, when you're in that space of prayer, then just knowing that if you go straight to Him, He will give me a fresh vision of what I needed. I remember this one time where I was really, really burnt out. I was crying pretty much every week.
Bless you.
I couldn't function. It was just one of those seasons of life where I was just taking everything on and carrying it all, and I was just a mess. And my minister, like at the time, he recognized this within me, and he said, right, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to pay for you to go to David's tent. I don't know. Have you ever heard of David's tent?
I have, but explain it, because there will be a lot of people listening who've never heard of it.
Yeah. So David's tent, it was basically a camp. Like, you wouldn't think camping as well is a really great place to go. I was like,
I actually love camping, so you're talking to a camper here, so you're fine with me.
Like, send me to a spa, of
Yeah,
anything.
right.
But it was it's 72 hours of worship, like just all the way through. Like, there's
Just worship, no
worship.
talks, no anything else. Just amazing.
72 hours of
What,
pure
non-stop?
worship.
Do you pause to sleep, or?
We pause to sleep, but they continue to worship all the way through the night. So they have
Incredible.
different bands and different people that are on all the way through the whole night and the whole day. So at any point you could go and worship. So it was just, but just being in that environment for me was just a place where I went on my own, and it was just a whole weekend where I could just spend time with Jesus. And honestly, it completely changed everything for me. And, where you can just stop and just be. So yeah, so that was really, really an important time.
And your minister encouraged you to do that?
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's so good that he recognized that was something that you needed. Like, that's really important, isn't it? How lovely to have that supportive leadership. What lessons have you learned, though, to avoid getting to that point again?
Yeah.
Not going to David's tent, because obviously you might like to do that again. That sounds lovely. But, getting to that point of burnout where you really need a retreat.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was a complete mess, but it definitely took me a long time to learn the lesson of rest, that rest is good. And I think the reason why I burnt out was because I literally carried everything. At that time, I was the children's worker, I was the youth worker, I was organising events in church, I was leading in the main service. I was part of a church where it wasn't just a case of you were doing your role and that was it. I was involved in every single part of church life. And I rested, but I didn't rest well because I just carried everything, you just carry everything mentally, spiritually, and all that type of stuff. But actually, we're not supposed to rest in that way, and I read in Hebrews 4. It's amazing because it talks about this faith rest life in the Passion Translation specifically. So it talks about spiritual rest, but in the Passion Translation, it explains it as a faith rest life. And I just love that because it is all about having faith, and it is all about trusting and knowing that it's not all down to me. Like, I do not need to carry it all. It's up to him to carry it. I've just got to do what I need to do and be obedient. And it says in the Hebrews 4, it's like a really great scripture. I encourage everybody to read it. But it says, if only you would listen to his voice and do not harden your hearts, you will enter that faith rest life. And as we enter into God's faith rest life, we cease from our own works, just as God celebrates his finished works and rests in them. So then we must be eager to experience this faith rest life so that no one falls short by following the same pattern of doubt and unbelief. So it's not just a physical rest, it's a spiritual rest, knowing that God has it all in his hands. It's the rest where it's not down to us. I don't need to be carrying things. I don't need to be worrying. And I'm a prone warrior, I think, in some ways, and when I'm stressed, I don't sleep well. I don't know about you, Joe, but I really don't sleep well when I get stressed. I go to bed really tired, but then my brain switches on and I've got all the to-do lists and I start thinking about how I'm going to deal with things the next day. And before you know it, I'm sitting there in bed awake for 2-3 hours because my mind's just going crazy.
Yeah.
And that's the case of like, you think I'm resting because I'm going to bed early, but I'm not resting because my mind's all over the place. And
Mhm.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah, so what I did then in that point, and I've learned it over time, is to really draw my focus back to God. So I started reading my Bible just before I went to bed, or I would
Mhm.
start praying before I went to bed, or I'd start making sure that before I went to bed that my focus was on him and not on everything else. And sometimes it's not an easy practice because naturally I still go to bed with all these different things, but there is a point now where I say, right, God, I'm not going to worry about this anymore. It's over to you. You can deal with that. I'm going to go sleep now. And I'm just like, it's really important to kind of just have that complete rest, knowing that it's not all down to you.
Mm.
I think we naturally take on all the pressure ourselves, but we have to release it. We have to let it go and just say, God, this is over to you. Physical rest is also really important, especially in ministry. You're always going to have those really busy seasons like Christmas and Easter,
Yeah.
where everything's chaotic and everything's all thrown into it. But, you have to have those points of make sure it's followed by physical rest afterwards, some time away, some time where you can literally switch off. And a lot of us may think, well, no, because I've got extra planning to do, or I've got
Yeah.
extra, all those other things that are coming for the next season. It's like, no, take time, stop, because we need that. We need planned retreat days in our diaries, like throughout the year. A lot of people would see a retreat day as a day off, but actually it's not. And it should be something that, especially if we're employed, but also if we're not employed as well, that we have a time where we just say, right, okay, I'm just going to go spend time with Jesus. Like
Mm.
on the last podcast, I said, we don't get those Sundays where we can
Yeah.
just be. So you need to find those other places where you can go to just be. You need to get to a conference or something, go to a retreat, do something that you can be filled again, because we can't do ministry on empty. We're not going to be any good to help other people if we are not first filled with the Spirit ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so important. We can't neglect those times with God. And it's taken me a long time to learn it. I'm probably still learning it. We still have to fit into that practice, but God cares more about us as sons and daughters than he cares about what we do. He cares so much more about our hearts. He cares more about who we are being than what we are doing. That
Mm.
doesn't mean we stop doing things, but first take care of your heart, and then you will be able to do greater things because of where it comes from first. And that is a really important lesson to learn.
I totally agree. And it's yeah, that really speaks to me actually, Hannah. Thank you. Because it's that concept of even if I didn't do anything ever again, then God still loves me because
Yeah.
he loves me because he loves me because he loves me.
Mhm.
And I don't know about you, but I find that quite hard to get my head around. I feel like the whole world is based on productivity, and you get an achievement for what you have done and
Mhm.
what people see you do. And it's just learning that that isn't how God operates, and that isn't
No.
how he sees us. And actually,
Yeah.
all he wants is for us to give him our hearts. That's really good
Mhm.
advice.
Yeah.
So you've talked about having a God-given vision that keeps bringing you back.
Mm.
I wonder, has that vision changed for you at all over the years?
I mean, yes and no. I still have a vision to see the lost saved. I still have a vision to see children and young people coming to know Jesus. I don't think that will ever change. I think that's something that's definitely built within me. It's my passion. It's something that will never change. I think the more I work with children and young people, the more I realize that, yeah, this is what I'm meant to do for the rest of my life. But how that happens and where it happens has definitely changed, and I think this is where it comes back to that continually spending time with Jesus is so, so important, because he needs to be the one to direct your steps. So when you said, how do you know if it's God or not? I know it's God because I spend time with him. I spend time knowing who he is and how he directs me. So the more I spend time with him, the more I know, okay, God, you're saying this. Let's do that. Also, I've had so many words spoken over me from different people, and different people encouraging me in different ways. And I'm so thankful, because generally there would be some word that's been spoken and I'll go to God and say, God, I'm not sure about this. Show me a sign that this is the right thing. And either something will happen or somebody else will come up and say something, and you go, okay, that's the confirmation I needed.
Yeah, I love it when that happens.
And it's the best thing. And you just know, okay, that's right.
So in terms of people encouraging us, I mean, we all need each other as well, don't we? Who have been your greatest encouragers? How significant a role have they played in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I have so many people now. I think I've got to the
Lucky
point where
you.
it seems a little bit braggy, but I have a really great family. I have really great mentors. I have some of the best of friends and I keep inviting more and more people to come along the journey with me, because we need people. And I find it really sad when I see people thinking that they have to do it all on their own. It's really isolating. And this may be for many, many reasons, where, we can go through life and maybe we've got hurt from someone, and we then lose the trust that we have in people. And then maybe because you've lost trust in that one person, you lose trust in so many other people. And that's not how we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be trusting of others, and we're supposed to be able to have that community. But I think it affects people a lot when they get hurt from people.
Yeah.
Which I totally understand. I totally understand it, but you can't judge each individual person based on one person who's hurt you. And we're all human. None of us are perfect. We're all going to hurt somebody. We're all going to disappoint somebody. We're all going to not meet the expectations. But that's just us. We're human. That's the whole point of having grace and forgiveness, isn't it? That's the whole message behind the Bible. And I think you can see it within ministry as well, especially in leadership. Maybe asking for help is seen as a weakness, where as a leader, we're probably supposed to be seen as having it all together. But actually, what I found in life is actually being vulnerable with people and being real and authentic has actually just opened up so many more conversations that has then invited people into my life in a different way. So that's why I can say now I've got a massive list of people, because I've just been vulnerable with them. I've just said to them, this is what I'm going through. Can you pray with me? Can you help me? And I know that there's different people that I can go to for specific things. If there's something that I want prayer for, I can go to a specific person for that. If there's somebody where I'm like, I probably do need a bit of a kick up the bum, I can go to this person because I know that they're going to give me some strong advice. And, if I need it, if I need somebody who I'm being accountable to, or somebody who can really keep me in that place, it's really good to have those people.
Do you have mentors that you check in with regularly, or is it more a case of I'm just having a chat?
Absolutely, because in my workplace, obviously I have my minister who I go to, who I'm accountable to, who's a great friend and who I can speak to. But there's also been people in my life who have gone further, who have been in children's ministry for a really long time, and have seen it all. And I can literally just send them a message and they'll be praying and encouraging me through that. But I've had to, when it comes to mentors, you have to specifically go to somebody and say, can you mentor me? It's more beneficial when you say to somebody, can you mentor me? And then it's going to be more better conversations afterwards.
Yeah.
So
well, then you both know where you are, I guess.
Exactly. So yeah, I have those mentors that I can go to. At the beginning of the year, I went to some friends and I said, look, this is what I'm going through in my life. I believe that God's speaking to me about this. Can you keep me accountable to this? And keep me in check. And having those people in my life as well has really helped me grow and shape along my journey. And I wonder how many people are going to be willing to do that. It really takes a place of being really vulnerable and being humble to know that everybody has the opportunity to say something. I can learn from anybody. I could learn from a child. I could learn from a young person. I could learn from somebody who's the same age as me. I could learn from somebody who's older than me. I could learn from somebody who's in a completely different job from me. I could learn from somebody who's not a Christian and somebody who is a Christian. It's having a vast amount of people around me that I can learn from, and just always saying to God, what are you trying to teach me in this season? What are you trying to teach me from this person? And there's going to be some things where God says, don't listen to that. And that's fine. Any words that are spoken over me, I go back to God and say, is this right?
Yeah, that's so important.
It's so, so important, because yes, I say learn from everybody, but also you've got to first check it with him, check it with your word, check it. And that's biblical principle as well. You've always got to check it. In Romans 12, it says, live in harmony with each other. Don't be too proud to enjoy the company of ordinary people, and don't think that you know it all. I think it's just a really clear, brutal lesson that a lot of us need to know. Don't ever think that you know it all, always be willing to learn. So yeah, invite people along the journey. They keep you going, they keep you motivated. They remind you of times of the journey that you've been on. When I felt discouraged or low in mood, it's always been the people who have been like, Hannah, are you serious? Like, look at the journey you've been on.
Yeah.
You can do this, and I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But, it's people. They encourage you back. So really, really surround yourself with some really good people who listen to God, who are full of wisdom and encouragement, and they will help you get through.
And the Bible tells us to remind ourselves of what the Lord has done. So has that been important for you in keeping you going? You've just sort of hinted at that people have said, look where you've been, but do you remind yourself of what God has done?
Yeah, absolutely. Every year I take time to reflect, and it is honestly one of my favorite times of year. I do it at the end of an academic year, so like around July over the summer holidays, and I do it at the end of a full year as well, so around the Christmas period as well. And it's honestly one of my favorite times, because I can look back, and I generally look back through my photos or something like that on my phone, or like different memories that I've had. And I just look back and I think, oh my days, that was where I was at the beginning of the year. And now look where I am now. And I kind of just take myself through that personal journey. And I recommend it for anybody, because there is always something to give thanks for. There's always something to be thankful for all the time. And it may be really hard for some people to hear that, because, we all go through trials. We all go through seasons of really hard times. I've heard people say, especially when it comes to New Year, like, oh, I'm leaving that year in the past because it was the worst year of my life.
Yeah.
All those different types of things.
Can we have a reset, please?
Yeah, I need a reset. And it's like, but look back at all the good things. Like, yes, there's always been challenges. Yes, there's always been hard times. Every single person goes through that. But you have a choice of whether to focus on those challenges or whether to focus on how good God has been through your life. And it may be the smallest thing that you can be thankful for, but there is always something to be thankful for. And, the Bible says, be thankful in all circumstances. The Bible says, consider it pure joy when we face trials. It's like, yay, another trial. Let's go.
I know. That's not an easy one to grapple with, is it?
It's not. You never go like into another challenge and go, yay, we're having another trial. Let's go. It's fun. But, you know, that's what the Bible teaches us. It's an attitude that we need to have. But I think reflecting also helps me and directs my goals for the next year, you know, because you can look through and you can see where you've been, but then you can see, right, okay, where do I want to see things happen for the next year? You know, what do I want to see change? What is missing? And I do that within my ministry, like not this year, the year before. My main focus was in our children's ministry to focus around behavior, because kids were just all over the place as they are sometimes, but focus on really building relationships with children. And that really grew through the year because we were really intentional about it. But then this year, what I noticed was missing was, how are we developing our prayer and worship with the children, and how are we doing family discipleship well? And so they're my goals for this year. But what you'll notice about my goals, they're not very specific. When you're in a mentoring program or anything like that, they say that you need to make your goals specific, measurable. You know, it's like SMART goals, what they're called.
Yeah.
But mine are never specific. You know, I never say, right, okay, family discipleship. I want to make sure that I have 5 families that are actively discipling at home, you know, and I want to know about it. So then I can say, yes, that's a box ticked. I never do that because it's not all down to me. I can't force those things to happen. I can create that culture of family discipleship and encourage it, but I can't force anybody to do that. The only person who can change a heart of someone is God. You know, I've got to recognize that it's not all down to me, that it is down to him. I can try and change the culture, but ultimately it's having that rest and that trust and that faith, knowing that this is what I'm doing, but I do not need to carry the outcome. God carries that outcome. All I have to do is just be faithful in what I'm doing, know that I'm going to be really intentional about this, but God takes that outcome and he will make it happen. And that's how we've got to be in our lives. You know, we've got to be able to set goals, but also know that by the end of the year, I can then look back and say, look how good God has been.
Yeah.
All the glory goes back to God because, yeah, I've done what I've done, but God's taken it the rest. And I think that's how he just wants us all to be in life, don't he?
I mean, that's a much lighter and freer way to live, actually, isn't it? It sounds much nicer, much less stressful, but we still keep picking up the bags ourselves, don't we? And having to hand them back. I have to hand them back on a daily basis, I think. So I guess most of us get involved in kids ministry because we think it's going to be fun, and it is fun most of the time. But how do we make sure that it's fun? How do you create that culture of fun for you and for your volunteers, I guess?
Yeah, definitely has to be fun. Always has to be fun. And it's something also that you need to really protect as well and lead. Tip number 1 would be surround yourself with a good team of people. We've already talked about surrounding yourself with good people, but honestly, the team, the energy levels can go up and down depending on the team that you have around you. You know, you don't want any fun suckers in there, you know. You don't
Fun sponges, yeah.
You don't want those people in there. But at the same time, you know, there are always going to be people who seem to take the fun out of things. And they're people that I will listen to and I'll respect and I'll be like, yeah, that's okay. Because they're probably people that are actually really wise and want some sensible stuff to it. And I'm like, okay, but I don't allow it to feed into the culture. You know, the culture of fun still needs to be there. And there may be people listening to this podcast who are probably thinking, yeah, okay, let me try and surround myself with people who are fun. But actually, that's all I have volunteering for us is people who are not necessarily fun. If that's the case, then, you know, you need to be on that daily walk with God and ask him to change your culture, ask him to help change the hearts of people. Because I've worked with different teams, lots of different teams, and sometimes I have to be over enthusiastic to counteract the lack of enthusiasm. You know,
Right.
I have to kind of go in there and be like, hey, how is everybody doing? And seem a little bit crazy, which doesn't actually come very easily as an introvert. I'm an introverted person, so I really have to kind of push myself to be that person. But it then kind of changes that culture. And sometimes I've had to challenge the attitude of others in a really nice way of just saying, you know, how are we going to have fun today? You know, what are we going to do? Like, let's think about how we're going to make this a really fun experience for the children, because we are actually here for the children. This is where a good, strong mission and values comes in with leading your team, because you have something to fall back on. You have something that's already written, already stated, that this is what we're all about. So, you know,
Yeah.
do
So
you
you
know
need
what
to
I
put
mean?
fun in your mission then, don't you? You need to
You
put
do,
fun in that
you
mission
do.
statement.
If that is something that needs to be said because the rest of your volunteers or your church is not in that space, then make sure it is said and stated so that, you know, everybody can get on board with that mission. Everybody can get on board with those values, and it keeps them motivated as well. We all get tired. We all get a little bit like, oh, most Thursdays, because I've been at the church all day, the hour leading up to Kids Club, my team will probably think that I'm the craziest person ever, because I literally go around dancing, psyching myself up in loads of different ways because I'm feeling so tired. But I make it more fun.
So there's another thing. Just dance. Just dance.
Dance around and have some fun, be free, have a good time. But yeah, no, I have to psych myself up because I want it to be a fun experience for my children. I want them to come in. I don't want them to come in and go, this is boring, I'm out. You know,
Right.
otherwise I'm not going to have any children there, am I? Tip number 2 is be really creative, like really creative. Think of the craziest ideas possible and just go with it. Like, you know,
Love that.
It may be really messy, but that's okay. You know, also, if you want to help leaders to be fun, get them involved in the games, you know, get them involved in the challenges. I've got our leaders, we give them pies in the face, you know, I've covered their faces in shaving foam and got kids to squirt water pistols at their faces so that they have to squirt the shaving foam off before. Like, that's the limit that I've got to.
Wow. You've done some good work there, Hannah. I feel like there's a lot of people who wouldn't want to get on board with that at all. I think maybe start smaller if you've got those kind of people.
Ease them in, you know, I've definitely had to ease them in. I mean, so for firework night, we got loads of silly string, and I got the leaders just to hold the buckets, and the kids had to aim the silly string at the bucket. Now, kids being kids, they're not just going to aim it at the bucket, are they? They're going to take full opportunity of squirting silly string at the leaders. But it's just silly string, isn't it? It's not going to make a mess or anything. It just goes everywhere. Kids love it. They love it when they can beat the leaders. They love it when they can beat the adults and stuff, you know. Food games always work. You can also be creative in your community work as well. Like, one time we had a mascot, like full-on mascot costume. And I did a competition with the kids, and I said, if you win, you can get a home visit from the mascot. It was a fox mascot, like, you know, we call it Freddy the Fox. And so we went around to different people's houses. We obviously called the parents beforehand and said, is this okay?
I'm coming dressed as a fox. Is that okay? That's kind of weird.
Is this okay? But honestly, like, it was the funniest thing ever. Just driving around, with this mascot in my car. And it turned up to different people's houses. The kids absolutely loved it. They went wild for it. But it was all about just building relationships and having fun. My final tip as well is be prepared for the program to go completely out the window. You know?
Okay, yeah. I've been there.
And just make everything fun. So, there's been, your attitude matters really a lot within this, because there have been so many times where there's been a game that's gone really, really well, and we've just been like, okay, let's do this again because it's working well. And there have been other times where the game has been a complete flop and has not worked well. It's like, so I just make a fun joke out of it. We don't get stressed about it. We just go with the flow and move on. There have been sessions where the kids are just not listening very well. And in the end, I just end up throwing sweets everywhere. Like, yeah, have some sweets. It's all good. Give them extra prizes or different things like that. It's just everything has gone completely out the window. But we've still been able to have that time where we're bringing them kids in to learn about Jesus. But at the same time, the rest of the program, we've just gone a little bit crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had sessions where I've thought, like, the kids just didn't really want to engage with any kind of learning at all, and actually all they wanted to do was do some craft, play some games, maybe kick a football around the hall, and then I've kind of gone away thinking, oh no, I didn't learn it. They didn't learn anything. I've done a bad job today. But actually, perhaps sometimes all they need is that social interaction with each other, because like, it's about building relationships with the children as well, isn't it? The children building relationships with each other and having those friendships, because that's what keeps them coming back. Because we all go to church because there's people that we like there, And if you go to church and you're isolated and you don't know anyone, or you feel like no one likes you, then you're probably not going to keep going.
Absolutely.
So I think those times, as grown-ups, we can think, oh, it's all gone wrong. But sometimes they might be the times that the kids go away saying, I've had the best time. And it all feeds into it. God builds on all of it, doesn't he?
Yeah. And relationship is so important. Like, there have been times where the kids have just been like, can we play this song? And we've just played a certain song and they've had like a massive dance party to it. But just having fun with it and making fun of it, making fun of the situation and just having a laugh with it. You just go with the flow rather than getting stressed. Always have a really good finisher in your program as well, I think. So we do Dice of Disaster, which...
What is that?
A leader gets
tell me that.
Dice.
Amazing.
But we roll a dice to make sure that happens. So you pick 6 leaders and it's all down to the roll of the dice. Whatever number it lands on, that's the person who gets pied in the face.
Love that. That's so fun. I really love that.
The kids love it because they all pick a leader that they want to pie in the face. So we get 6 children and 6 leaders that the child has specifically picked. And whatever the dice rolls on, then they get pied in the face. And kids love it every single time.
I mean, is there anything better than custard pieing a leader? There really isn't. So good. I love that. So this is so helpful, all this stuff about staying motivated, avoiding burnout. Can you give me 3 key takeaways on how we avoid burnout?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about so much already, haven't we, really? Like, surround yourself with good people, keep focused on God, keep the joy going, make sure it's all fun. All those different things are so, so important. But if I was to add anything, I would add these 3 things. Number 1 is avoid comparison. We could sit here and we could look at so many different churches, so many different ministries and think, oh, why isn't my ministry like that? Why isn't my kids group going in that way? Why isn't it working out for me? And know that everybody is on their own journey. Comparison is a complete passion killer. It leads to insecurity and competition. What we need to do is we need to look at other ministries and be inspired, but not think, right, okay, I'm not doing so well. We should actually be inspired to see where things can go, because every ministry has gone through their own journey, and it's probably been a really tough journey for them to actually get to a place where it's successful. I've had many, many times where I've compared myself to other people, and God really challenged me to celebrate others, and celebrate others' ministries and other people's successes. And when you feel really low and insecure, celebrating others' successes doesn't really come easy, does it?
No.
It doesn't come naturally, but it helps us to rise. It helps us to actually focus more on God and how He is leading your specific journey. So, yeah, don't compare, but be inspired, and know that God will make things happen in the right timing for you specifically, rather than in the timing for everybody else. So, yeah, so that's my first thing. The second thing is then let go of the clock. God's timing is everything. And sometimes He has to do a lot more work in the background that we can't actually see for things to be ready. And I've always found that really hard, because I'm like, God, I'm ready for this. I'm
Yeah.
ready for this to
Oh, we're
happen.
always trying to run ahead of
We're
him.
always
Like,
ready.
yeah.
I'm ready. I've gone through all this. I'm ready now.
And he's
And
like, not quite.
he's got to figure something else out with somebody else or something else or something like that before it's at the perfect timing. So I'm just waiting for other people to catch up. I'm just like, come on, like. But yeah, you got to think of it like, how you would put a puzzle together. You put the edges together, and then you slowly figure out the middle. You don't figure out the middle and then go out. It doesn't look like a perfect picture. So you've got to figure out all those things and just let go of the clock and allow God to do His work. One of my favorite quotes that I always come back to is, who you are becoming while you are waiting is more important than what you are waiting for. Use that opportunity of waiting to grow in patience, to grow in love, to grow in finding joy in every single circumstance, because who you become is more important than what you're waiting for. So always think about yourself and how you are being, rather than what you are doing. And then thirdly and lastly, know that you are not on your own. You're not doing this on your own. I set up TenFour Ministries to help people because I want people to recognize what they have inside of them is special. I want them to see the potential that they have within them, not because of a necessary particular talent, but actually because of who God created them to be. I try and see each individual person how God sees them, and see the talents that God has placed in them. And a lot of the time, the people that I work with, they don't see it in themselves. And so my heart is just to see everybody equipped into using the gifting that God has given them to fulfill the Great Commission that we all have, because we all have a part to play in raising children to be followers of Jesus. We all have that part to play. We've established that throughout all of these podcasts, that it's down to every single person. We all have something to do. But what I want to do is make sure, or help people to know that they're not on their own in this journey. You have somebody cheering you on. So if that is somebody who's listening to this podcast right now, if you need somebody who wants to support you, to come alongside you, if you want somebody who's going to can train your teams and encourage people, that is what TenFour Ministries is for. That's what I've set it up for, is to help other people. So Ezra 10:4, it says, "Rise up, this matter is in your hands. We will support you, so take courage and do it." It does take courage. It is in your hands, but we're here to support. So I want people to know that they're not on their own, and that they can call out at any point. And I will be.
That's so great. That's so great. And you're so inspiring, Hannah. So how can people find you? Where are you? How do they get in touch?
Yeah, so you can get in touch with my website, which is tenfourministries.co.uk. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook that you can follow our socials, where we try and post different things to inspire, to encourage, different ideas. But yeah, you can get in contact through tenfourministries.co.uk.
Brilliant. I will put a link in the description so that's easy for people to click on. But thank you so much. This series has been really encouraging and really inspiring. So thank you so much for your time. And yeah, let's plan the next one, shall we? Let's plan the next one.
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to come back.
Brilliant.